Now, there are many reasons why you may want or need to create a multilingual website, but you may not know how to go about doing it. In today's video, I'm going to take you step by step through the entire process. We're going to be using Weglot to do the translation, who've kindly sponsored this video. We're also going to take it one step further. We're going to include some custom post types, some dynamic data used by ACF, and we're going to see how easy it is to translate the entire website. Now, if you want to see how I built this first part of the website, I'll put a link in the description and also in the corner now so you can check that video out and then join in to follow along with this or go back and watch it later. So let's just take a look at how everything is set up in the dashboard of WordPress, then let's get started creating our translations. Okay, so I've got a custom post type called properties, and inside there we've got properties. That includes some custom fields, some custom meta information supplied by Advanced Custom Fields. If we open up one of the properties, you'll see it's a very simple example, but this is basically just showing you how you can make this multilingual. You can add additional fields in, all those kinds of things, and they will be converted for you. So if we scroll through, you can see we've got a normal post with images, gallery, heading, sections, so on and so forth. And if we come down, we've got some information like property prices, property location, those kinds of things. If we hop back over to the front end of the site, you can see we've got a filter on the left-hand side. We've got the information then about each of the properties, and we've got prices and locations, which is supplied by those dynamic fields. So let's go about taking a look now how we can add multilingual options to this. So we're going to be using, like I say, Weglot. So this is a service that you can use to automatically translate content on a website, or if you want to, you can go ahead and pay to have custom translations. It's also worth bearing in mind that even if you have the automatic translations, you can still go in and refine any of those translations, either yourself or part of your team. So lots of options are available there to make sure that all the translations are spot on. But we're going to be taking a look at the automatic options in this example. But if you want to refine these, use the paid for options, you can do if you want to. Okay, so once you've gone ahead, set up an account, chosen what options you want, we're going to go ahead and log into our account. Now inside there, the first time, you're going to literally just be presented with a really simple screen that's just going to ask you to give it a project name and also the kind of technology that you're using. So you're not reliant upon WordPress, you can use Joomla, other different things like that. Okay, so let's just call this real estate. And website technology, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to find WordPress inside there. But you can see there's lots of options. All of the main contenders, Drupal, Magento, PrestaShop, Salesforce, those kinds of things inside here, as well as Webflow, Wix, and so on. We're going to choose WordPress and we're going to click on Next. Now this tells us how we go about setting things up and supplies our API key that connects the plugin inside, in this example, WordPress, to your actual account. So let's go ahead and do that next. We'll hop back over into WordPress. We'll come over into our plugin section and we're going to go ahead and add a new plugin. Let's search for Weglot and now let's go ahead and install that plugin. Once you've installed it, we're simply going to activate this and then we're ready to just drop in our API key and set up any options we may want to. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go to the Weglot settings section and inside there, the first thing we need to do is drop in our API key. So let's go ahead and do that first. Once we've got our API key, all we need to do then is configure things inside the dashboard of WordPress. So let's go back over to that, put our key in, let that validate. As you can see, it already has. Choose our origin language. In this example, the website's in English, so we're going to stick to English for that. But you can choose from lots of other languages, depending upon what your base language for your site is going to be. Then we're going to choose the destination languages. In other words, what are we going to take our original language and what are we going to convert it or translate it to? In our example, let's keep it straightforward and just use two. Let's use French. You can see once I type that in, French pops up. And let's go and do Spanish. And Spanish pops up. But as you can see, there are lots and lots and lots of options inside here. So you should have pretty much every base you need covered. Choose as many or as few languages as you need to at this point, and then we're going to hit Save Changes. So now if we take a look at the site itself, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, we've now got the language switcher automatically inserted. If we select this, we can choose any of the languages we already have translated. For example, if we switch to French, you'll see that now updates everything on the page, our descriptions, sections, search, titles, all those kinds of things. As you can see, if we come up to the address bar at the top, what happens is Weglot puts in a language code, so FR for French, and then you can see what comes afterwards is the same link we would have had in the English version, just preceded by the language. So if we switch over to Spanish, for example, If we took a look at the address bar, you'll see now instead of FR, we've now got ES for Español, Spanish. If we take a look, you can also see now that everything on the page has been translated, including our search on the left-hand side and all the content we have in our main listings, including the dynamic information. You can see everything is translated perfectly fine. And if we open up one of these pages, for example, we'll open up Hillston, you can see we now get the Spanish version. And if we scroll through, you can see everything has now been translated into Spanish. If we switch this back over to English, you can see we get the English version, everything is left intact, everything as it was. And the same if we switch over to the French version, we get the French version. And again, you can see everything is in place, everything looks exactly the same, the only thing that changes is the language. So that's really, really simple and straightforward. So next up, let's take a look. If we don't want this sort of like bar in the bottom right hand corner, what options do we have to customize that? And then we're going to take a look at how Weglot actually gives you a lot more control over how your translations work and a lot of other things in the actual dashboard of your account itself. We'll take a look at that in a moment. But first of all, let's take a look at how we handle the actual sort of language changer. Let's hop back over into our website. Now you can see we've got some basic settings inside here. Now we've set this up and saved everything out. You can see we can choose the button preview, how we want this to be displayed. You can see this is going to give us a sort of representation of what it'll look like on the page. And then we can go ahead and we can just customize those a little bit. So do you want to use a drop down? Do you want to disable that? You can see you now just get the languages as a little sort of like, language strip that allows people to see exactly what's going on. I like the drop down for this. Do you want to use flags? You can enable or disable those. You can change the styling of those if you want to, so you can make them circular and so on. Let's just leave those as they are. You can then see you've got a couple of other options, and if you want to override the CSS and put your own custom CSS in it to style this to be perfectly in keeping with whatever design you have, you can use that option inside there to override the CSS. You've also got some additional options, including custom positions and managed URLs to exclude and things like that. And we'll come back and take a look at this a little later. But for now, let's just leave that as it is and say we're happy with all the options inside there. Let's now go and take a look at our theme. And let's just adjust the way this actually works. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and create a menu to include the Weglot translator. So to do that, we're going to hop into the appearance section and come into our menus. Now, I've already created a language menu, which is going to sit right at the top of our design, but there's nothing in there at the moment. You can see now we've got the Weglot plugin installed, we get a new entry inside here called the Weglot Switcher. We can open that up, select it, and add it to any menu we want inside our overall design. You can see this creates a custom link. We can then specify where we want it, and I'm happy with where that is. And you can see all the options are inside there. We can hide the current language if we want to. So it's really, really simple to use. So now if we go ahead and save that, next thing we can do is go and include this into our design. Now, different themes are going to have different ways of working. And for this example, all we need to do is come to the customizer. We're going to open up our heading section. We'll edit that. And we're going to add a new section at the top. So what we're going to do is add in a new widget. So we're going to look for menu 2 in this example, pop that into the top right-hand corner. And you can see that now pops up in the corner and gives us the language options. And as you can see, automatically pre-fills all that out for us. Really, really simple to do. So we'll publish that page and we're pretty much done. Now if we go and take a look at our site design and refresh the page, we find we've got a new section at the top that tells us what language we're currently looking at. And if we want to change this over to something like English, Spanish, whatever other options we've got, all inside there. Really, really simple, nice and clean, included into your design. So super, super simple to work with. Okay, so now let's go back and take a look at some of the final options we have inside the plugin and then how things work and are set up inside the actual account. So we've seen all these basic options, the language, button design, and so on. If we scroll right the way down to the bottom, you can see we've got a few other options. These are optional. You don't need to set these. You can literally leave them as they are. But you can see there's various different ones inside here. Do you want auto redirection? So this will look at the language that's being used on the browser that the current user is looking at the site on. And if, for example, it's in Spanish or French, it will then redirect them automatically to their chosen language. If you want that to be the case, simply check the box and you can do that automatically. And that will make a very seamless way of allowing people, for example, in France, not to have to go to the English version first and then choose to view the French version. They will literally automatically be directed to the French version. Totally optional, up to you, but good to see that inside there. And the same thing goes. We can translate emails if you want to. If you're using AMP pages, you can translate those, and you can also allow the users to search in any language they use for WordPress. So if you're using search as a key part of your site, you can set that up so they can actually search in the preferred language that the site is being used on. Okay, so there's a couple of different things. Now, there are going to be some times where you don't want to have certain pages translated, and you can exclude those inside here. So you've got exclusion URL, exclusion blocks. So blocks are more to do with CSS and things like that, but the exclusion URL is really simple. Let's open that up. It'll take you over to the site, and this is one of the features that's part of your account. And inside there, you can add a rule. So let's add that, and you can see we can choose various different qualifiers. So is it exactly a particular URL? Does it contain? But you can see you've got even right the way to match regex. So there's lots of options. If we choose something like is exactly, you can see you simply drop in the URL. You don't need the domain, and you can see I've already tried this out on a couple of different options. Drop that inside there, and you can exclude this for specific languages. So you can be really, really granular on exactly what is being excluded from your site. This is really, really cool and relatively simple to use. So that's a cool addition. Once you've set that up, any pages that match those criteria won't be translated. Simple as that. One simple rule to remember though. Once you've translated something, it will automatically show that. So you need to delete those translations or set these up before you make any translations. Just a little caveat there. Just make sure that you don't have those translations in place. Otherwise, it will kind of override what's happening here. Just wanted to make you aware of that. We'll say we're happy with everything, and there is a full tutorial on how to use this particular feature anyway. Okay, so that's some of the options. And like I say, you can add blocks to exclude, and you can drop in the class that you want to exclude from this. Great if you're using custom layouts, custom options, you're injecting custom code in there, or you want to use a specific feature in your theme, whatever you're building, you can drop that inside there. So pretty cool. Okay, the other option is to custom place the actual little bar that you're going to use that allows you to change the different languages. Because we've set this up using one of the widgets in the header, that's been turned off automatically. But if you wanted to, you can use the switcher editor to position that wherever you want on your page to make sure that it's in keeping with your design. Like I say, we're not using that feature, so this doesn't really matter. But it's there should you want it and you want to customize it. Okay, so that's the basic options inside the plugin itself, and most of the really cool stuff goes on inside your account. So let's switch over to our account and take a little look at what I'm talking about. So once you're in your account, you'll see you now have a lot of information available to you. It tells you the plan that you have, how much or how many words are currently being used, any translation requests, those kinds of things. Also shows you the languages, the number of words that are being used inside there, and so on. So this is just like an overview. And if you run multiple sites, they'll all be listed upside in the My Projects section. So you can add additional projects inside here, manage any projects, delete them, those kinds of things. If you want to manage your plan, you can do that, view what plan you're currently on, so on and so forth. Okay, so what's more important though, what's more interesting is the translation section. Let's click on translations. And this will then give us information about the translation. So you can see we currently have two translations, our English to French and our English to Spanish. We also have the option to see any inactive translations. Now there are various reasons why translations may become inactive. For example, you may have content removed from a website or content that hasn't been viewed in quite some time. This makes it really easy to see any of those inactive translations, and then you can choose how to manage those. Okay, so if we open up, you can see we've got total words translated. We've got percentage of manually translated words. Currently there's nothing because we're not requesting a manual translation. We can edit, delete, and we can view these. If we open up the options, we've got some additional settings. Now the Make It Public allows you to easily enable or disable a specific set of translations on your site. So you may be working on these, you want to make sure that everything is perfect before you go ahead and make them live, where you can use the Make Public switch to enable or disable that specific translation site-wide. And then you have the option to display automatic translations. So you may have automatic translations and you may have manual translations. Choosing this option allows you to turn on or off those automatic translations. So if you turn them off, only the manual translations will show on the site. And then anywhere that doesn't have a translation will show the original text. If you want to go ahead and edit some parameters, you can click the edit option, and inside there we can apply a custom name to this, and we can also change the flag that's being used. So if you wanted to customize this for maybe a localized version of something, you could do that inside here. We leave that as it is. You've also got actions, which allows you to import and export translations. So if you had multiple sites using the same information or parts of a site, you could import and export accordingly. Now, if we take a look at the top, you can see we've also got languages, which is what we're currently looking at, URLs, visual editor, glossary, professional translation, and URL slugs. You can also go ahead and add additional languages inside here should you want to. Let's take a look at the URLs. Let's step through these one at a time. So this is now showing you all the URLs that have been translated. And if you find that anything's missing, you can go ahead and you can scan the site to just check. So for example, if we click on scan the site, that's now going to go ahead and take a look at any URLs that haven't been included in the translation and then pull those up and start the translation process if we wanted to. So let's just say we want all of those. And when you're working with something like WordPress, you can end up with multiple different URLs to the same page based upon various different parameters. So you may not want to or need to have multiple translations going on. But for this example, we'll say we're happy with all those. We'll add those URLs. You can also go ahead and sync any of the content. So you can see we can sync the content for this. And that will then go ahead. Please wait while it's syncing. And once everything's in place, you'll start to get statistics then for all the different pages, all the different links that have been included. So things like the login page and things like that, you might not want to worry about that. You could delete that if you wanted to very easily. You've also got the visual editor. Now the visual editor is really, really cool. This allows you to visually edit any of the pages on your site. So if you find something isn't perfect, or you've got someone that's, speaks that language natively and 95% of the translation, the automatic translation is fine, but there's a few tweaks that need to be made, this is a really easy way of doing it. Let's say start editing. This will then take us over to our site and open up the page. For example, in this example, the home page. And you'll see when we mouse over any entry inside here, it's an editable option. So for example, Wilmington Lane, we can click on it and now we can go ahead and we can adjust the translations. So there's our English. We might find that we wanted to have a different translation for the French, but you can see we can very quickly and easily customize any aspect of this. So for example, let's close that down and say we wanted this location one. You can see there's the English version and there's the, in this example, French version. If we click on the Spanish, there's the Spanish version. And we can customize that if we want to. This makes the whole process, if you see something on the site, easier than trying to dig through to find that translation somewhere. Literally just open the page up and go ahead and edit it. Edit exactly what you want. So I think this is really cool. Like say, refine your search, click on it, there you go, there's your French, there's your English, done through automatic translation. If this is a manual translation, it'll tell you it's a manual translation. Really, really cool, really simple. And you can see we've also got things like the language details at the top, the link that's being used, the SEO options inside there if you want to, so your title, for example, all listed inside there. Really, really easy to work with. Let's head back over. Now if we go over to the glossary, you can see we can now add glossary rules or we can import a file. So we click on add glossary rule. You can see we can set things up to either translate a word or to not translate a word. So if we choose the option for a rule, you can see never or always translate. So let's just choose the option for never translate. Then we can go ahead and insert the word we never want translated. So let's just say, for example, London. We can then choose what languages we want to apply this to. So you can see there's our French and our Spanish. So we just simply choose the languages we want, specify whether this is case sensitive or not. Because it's London, then it makes sense to have that case sensitive option inserted. Once we do that, we click on save and then we've now added our custom glossary item. Pretty cool. Then you've got your professional translations. Now at the moment, I don't have any professional translations, but if you paid for those, this is where they would be listed and this is where you can manage them. And again, there's a full help section on here on how to use all of this feature. Really simple. And finally, your URL slugs. So if you wanted to, you can see we've got automatic translations, or we could, if we wanted to, translate these manually. Again, it's one of those things that if you're using the slug, which is just basically the URL for the page, if you're using those for SEO purposes, you may have specific SEO requirements for that slug in a specific language. This is where you can go ahead and do that. And you can see all of our different slugs are inside here, currently 22. We can select it, we can go ahead and make changes to it, we can auto-translate it, whatever you kind of want to do. So you can see there's the auto translation, but if we wanted to change that, we could change it very easily. Next up, we take a look, we've got statistics. Now statistics is, as its name would suggest, it will give us information for the number of translation requests by URL and so on. So as your site gets more and more use, then you're going to start to see more information inside this section. Right now, this is all new, so this is pretty new. Go to page views, for example. We can activate this option on there, and we can now go ahead and we can see the number of views based upon the country, the language, the page views, and so on. So great to see if your multilingual site is getting traffic and what's happening with that traffic, what's popular, and so on. So pretty cool. And then finally, we have the settings section. And this is where you can adjust the settings for the project that you're currently working on. So you can see this is our real estate project. There's our URL, our language. Do you want to auto switch? Do you want to enable external link translations? What type of website? So on and so forth. Some of these things are going to be useful, other things not so much so. But that's basically how we can use Weglot to customize the overall experience based upon different translation languages for your website. Hopefully what this demonstrated is incredibly easy to get started using this. But if you want to get in and refine and fine tune exactly what your translations are saying in any given part of your site, all those options are there for you. Really, really simple to work with. So, as always, all the applicable links are in the description below. If you've got any comments, questions, or feedback on this video or anything covered in it, drop those in the comment section below. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.